Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Netflix's limited series, Death by Lightning. It's a 4-episode dive into the life and assassination of the 20th President of the United States, James Garfield, and the unhinged man who did it, Charles Guiteau. So, first off, let's talk about the cast, because this lineup is absolutely stacked. Michael Shannon plays James Garfield, like I said. He's the 20th president of the United States. We know Michael Shannon from many things. He's been in so many films, TV shows. He was General Zod in Man of Steel. But we mainly know him from his breakout role as Greg Buell in 8 Mile. Matthew McFadden plays Charles Guiteau. He is Garfield's assassin, and we know McFadden best as Tom Wambsgans on Succession, a character that, now that we're a bit removed from Succession, a great, like, I wouldn't call him like a main character on that show, but a secondary character. He's a great complimentary character, like the actor version of like a great sixth man or something like that. But I think back on Succession, I look at Tom's character very, very, very highly. Betty Gilpin plays Garfield's wife, Crete. I thought she was great in 2023's Miss Davis by Damon Lindelof. And even earlier this year in Netflix's American Primeval, which I don't think a lot of people watch. More people should watch that. Spoiler alert, that's going to be in my honorable mentions for 2025. But now we're already with just those three, you got my attention. But then you add Nick Offerman playing Chester A. Arthur. He was vice president during Garfield's brief stint as president and became president when Garfield was killed. You got Bradley Whitford. He plays Senator James Blaine, who later becomes Garfield's Secretary of State, and who I think we all know and loved in The Handmaid's Tale, again, among many other things. And lastly, you got one of my favorite actors, Shea Whigham, showing up to split time as both Senator Roscoe Conkling and Willy Wonka. I'm fans of all these actors already. And they all bring exactly what you hope for, especially Shannon and McFadden, who absolutely carry this show in very different but equally captivating ways. All right, so let's talk about the show. Death by Lightning kicks off with like a unique tone. There's a bit of humor early on, and calling it a bit is generous. It persists through all 4 episodes, but it's probably the most noticeable, I think, of the first 2. And I get why you do this, right? This isn't the most palatable topic in the world. People might hit play based on the cast and then find themselves bored at all the political machinations. So you inject some humor to keep them engaged. I get it. But that aspect is my only complaint about the show, though. I don't need the humor. I wasn't there for it. I found it to be off-putting at times. Even when it worked, I found it off-putting. Like if I laughed, I'd still be like, I don't feel like this is the time. It's the time for me to be laughing. For example, like there was a scene with a sex cult. Then it included a punchline where the women who don't want to have sex with Guiteau call him Charles Get Out. Funny line. And the sex cult is a real bit of history that he was involved in. It's just thrown in there for laughs. And like it just didn't work for me. And I wish they hadn't played it for laughs. And that was the only moment. That wasn't the only moment where the show seemed to almost like prioritize levity over depth. But that said, I realize that's really just a me issue. Not everyone wants a totally straight-laced political biography, and I understand why the creators thought a little levity might help draw in and maintain / keep a wider audience. But when this show does take itself seriously, it hits hard. I think that's most evident in the final 2 episodes, which dial the humor way back and instead focus on what's most compelling about this story, which is how delusion, political ego, and medical malpractice rooted in racism conspired to kill a president, and how the system was either too corrupt or too careless to stop it. We spent a lot of time in the beginning building contrast between Garfield and Guiteau. Garfield's dignified, thoughtful, respected. Guiteau, he's a pathological liar. Or more accurately, someone so mentally unwell that he believes his own fabrications. Like, I don't think Guiteau necessarily lies. I think that he just doesn't grasp the reality of his actions and fully believes that he didn't do the things that he did. And I think that becomes a core strength of the series, how it handles Guiteau's delusion. He doesn't come off like a mustache twirling supervillain who's here to assassinate the president. McFadden plays him with a level of sincerity and authenticity that makes his descent both tragic and terrifying. There's a line in a great scene where him and Garfield meet face to face, where he practically begs Garfield. He says, "Tell me how I can be great too. You're just like you." And in that moment, you see everything: his desperation, his instability, his yearning to matter. That's a big through line throughout the series. It's a great scene, and this shows at its best when it leads into those moments of like uncomfortable complexity. Not so much plays on a name and a sex cult. The pacing is also worth noting. For a story that spans just a few years, this thing moves. By the end of episode 1, Garfield's already been nominated. Episode 2, he's elected. Episode 3, we're on the brink of disaster. And despite all of that momentum, the show still finds time to dig into the political machinations behind Garfield's presidency and his ascension to the presidency, including the vicious infighting within the Republican Party with Roscoe Conkling and Chester A. Arthur trying to pull strings from the shadows. And honestly, the show does a fantastic job of making that political maneuvering interesting. Like, it's not all stuffy backroom deals. It's tense, strategic, and it at times it's downright petty. Most of the time, it's downright petty. Most of the time today, it's downright petty. But speaking of interesting quotes, though, that's another standout feature of this show. It's got some bangers. The title comes from a quote by Garfield after he's implored to increase his security, since he allows people to just walk in the White House and make appointments to talk to him. He says, quote, "Assassination can be no more guarded against than death by lightning." So that's the quote. That's where the episode title comes from. Turns out that's not true. A security team guards quite well against assassination, which is why no president has been assassinated in 60 years. So, but that tragic irony, it runs through the whole series. It wasn't the bullet that killed Garfield. It was everything that followed. But my favorite quote, and not just my favorite quote of the series, not just my favorite quote of the year, but a now all-time favorite quote, happens in episode 3, when Garfield is discussing the friction that he has within the Republican Party and with Roscoe Conkling. He says, "Of course I deprecate war, but if it's brought to my door, the bringer will find me at home." I said, God damn. I don't know what it is about that quote, but that's some hardcore shit, man. That's one of the most hardcore things I've ever heard. And of course, I looked it up because I'm like, no way that they just made up a quote that good for this show. And of course, they didn't. He really said that. What a quote, man. I love, man, war's brought to my door. They're going to find me at home. That's some real shit, man. Once Gateau pulls the trigger early in episode 4, the focus shifts and the series continues to shine. A black doctor arrives to treat Garfield and is initially turned away due to racism. A white doctor takes over, and over the course of the next couple of days, treating Garfield, he uses unsterilized tools, ignores better methods, jams his dirty paws into Garfield's open, pus-dripping wounds, scoffs at the idea of sepsis, and then Garfield dies of sepsis. I should have laughed at that. That wasn't funny. But the bullet didn't hit any vital organs, and they say in the show, like, had they just done nothing, he would have lived. It was the infection that killed him. Instead, the medical malpractice is so appalling, so negligent, that it ends up being the most infuriating part of the whole show and retroactively of Garfield's life. When the doctor is told that had he done nothing, that Garfield would have lived, the doctor goes, "We made a mistake." Who is we? Like, you made a mistake by being racist, smug, and stubborn. I'm crazy to me. We made a mistake. Midway through, I found myself wondering, how many people even know this story, right? Not a particularly popular president. His presidency lasted 200 days. Its place within history, his presidency, pales in comparison to, like, Lincoln's assassination or Kennedy's assassination. Well, in a moment that I didn't like, I felt it was too on the nose. The show touches on his legacy in the finale through Garfield's wife, Crete. So while in prison after the shooting, Gateau feels that he's done the country a great service. No one agrees. He's visited by her sister. She doesn't agree. Then he's visited by Crete, and she tells him that her husband will only be remembered as a footnote. She tells him that she lied when he asked her about his legacy, and she told him that he would, on his deathbed, that he would be remembered grandly. And then she tells Gateau that he will also fail to be remembered. And I'm just like, this is it's too much. Like, the writers took their knowledge from today of how well known or not well known Garfield and Gateau are, and they tried to apply it to that time. Like, there's no way Creed would think like, yeah, my husband who was president, who was just assassinated, he ain't that big of a deal, and he's just gonna be a minor footnote. Like, she probably didn't even think of his legacy as president. So I thought that was a bit much to have these characters speaking to the legacies of one another using knowledge from like 2025 when the people were writing this, or whenever they wrote it, 2023, 24, whatever. But what did you think about that, Andy? Like, did you feel like, if you watched it, did you feel like that was kind of like, not a fan of that moment? But I don't know. It didn't feel earned, too self-aware. I don't know. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Anyway, wrapping up, Death by Lightning. It wasn't perfect. Like I said, the humor didn't work for me, and some choices felt more like attempts to punch up a slow subject rather than elevate it. But those last 2 episodes were absolutely incredible, and the acting across the board is phenomenal. And the humor was only a minor. Like I said, I didn't like it, but they didn't go too heavy with it, especially in the back half of the season. So I'm not too mad about it. Michael Shannon brings gravitas to Garfield. McFadden makes you uncomfortable in all the right ways as Gateau, and he does an excellent job of conveying the man's mental illness. The political content is well paced. The stakes are clear. The series does a great job of making 1880s DC feel both chaotic and familiar. I'm not even going to get into it, but there are several moments throughout the show that are very much meant to draw comparisons to how things are today. I'm still thinking about whether or not this show is going to make like the bottom of my top 10 or get an honorable mention. But one thing's for sure, it finished very strong, and I respect the hell out of this show for that. I really enjoyed watching it. And even if it doesn't end up making my top 10, very high recommendation. Check it out. If you haven't seen it, sorry, I just spoiled it for you. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Like the channel, subscribe, share to your social media, join the Discord, join the conversation. Till next time, peace.